So 5.3 notes, we're solving systems of equations. So we've done systems of equations before where we have two equations with two variables, but we're just going to learn a new way to do it, and that's solving by using elimination. So it's just a new technique. But looking at the warm-up, so let's go back to the warm-up. What's our answer here? Anybody find the answer to the warm-up? Did anybody try the warm-up? Because we didn't know how or because we didn't want to? Okay, so remember, we write our solution as x comma y. So the first number is your x, the second number is your y. To see if it's a solution of the equation, we want to plug in the numbers. So I would plug in, just to test the first one, I'm going to plug in 1 for x and 2 for y and see if it works. So I'm going to plug it into the first equation here. So I have negative 2 times 1 is equal to 4 times 2 plus 6. So negative 2 is equal to 8 plus 6. Is this true? No. So A is not an answer. So we can cross that off. Let's check B. What am I going to plug into x? 1. What am I going to plug into y? Negative 2. So let's try that. So I have negative 2 times 1, which is equal to 4 times negative 2 plus 6. So this is negative 2, which is equal to, what's 4 times negative 2? Negative 8. And what's negative 8 plus 6? So is negative 2 equal to negative 2? Is that true? Yeah. So it works in the first one, but we also have to check the second one and see if that works. So also in the second equation, what am I going to plug into y? Negative 2. And then what am I going to plug into x? 1. So I just plug in the numbers and I'm going to solve it out. How would I solve this? Awesome. We have to follow our order of operations. PEMDAS. So we're going to do the parentheses first. So in the parentheses, I have multiplication and addition. What would I have to do first? The multiplication or the addition? Multiplication. So what is 2 times negative 2? Negative 4. And negative 4 plus 3? Negative 1. And then what's 2 times negative 1? Negative 2. Now let's see if it makes sense on the right side too. What would I do first, the multiplication or the subtraction? Multiplication. So this is 3 minus 5. And what's 3 minus 5? Negative 2. Does negative 2 equal negative 2? Yes. So does it make sense in both equations? So what do you think our answer is? B. So if it gives you answers, just plug them in and see what works. So 5.3, solving linear systems by elimination. So Mr. Yurko made a little steps down here, 1, 2, and 3. So I think this is a little bit more helpful than how the book explains it. So step 1 is we want to look for variables and coefficients that match. So I always want like the same number, the same coefficient in front of my variable. So if I have a 2x, I want a negative 2x also, because what's 2x minus 2x? 0. They would eliminate, which that's the name of this section, solve using elimination. So we want the same number, but opposites. So we look for the same number, but opposites. What does opposites mean? One's positive and one's negative. Because if we have a positive 2 and a negative 2, they cancel out. So we could multiply or divide to match one variable. And then we want to subtract / add the equations to eliminate one of the variables. Our goal is to eliminate. So we have to eliminate one of the variables. So looking at A, we always want to look and see if we have the same number but opposites for one of our variables. Do I have that? With the x's or the y's? The y's. So the y's are going to be the ones that I eliminate. So I'm going to combine all my like terms. What is 3x plus 3x? 6x. What's 2y minus 2y? 0. They cancel, which that's our goal, is always to eliminate one of the variables. What's 4 minus 4? 0. Now, can I solve 6x is equal to 0?
No.
Why not?
Because
I can solve if 0 is the numerator. How would I get that x all by itself? Awesome. Since 6 is being multiplied to x, I do the opposite and divide both sides by 6. So I get x is equal to, what is 0 divided by 6? 0. So x is equal to 0. That is one of my solutions. Now, kind of throwing it back to what we did in December, how do you think I find the other solution?
plug in 0.
Awesome. I plug in the 0. I'm going to plug that into one of my equations. Do I plug it into the x or to the y?
X.
I plug it into the x because it's x is equal to 0. Do you want to plug it into the first equation or the second? First equation, it doesn't matter, just as long as you plug it into the right variable, the correct variable. So I have 3 times 0, because I'm plugging in 0 for x, plus 2y is equal to 4. Now from here, we solve for y. One step at a time. What should I do first? Multiply 3 times 0. What's 3 times 0? 0. So since it's 0, it just goes away. We don't need it. It's like 1 plus 0. 2y plus 0 is still just 2y. So it goes away. What would I do next to solve for y?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2. Since 2 is being multiplied to y, I do the opposite to get the y all by itself. So I have y is equal to, what's 4 divided by 2? 2. Perfect. That's my second answer. So when we write our solution, it's always as a coordinate pair. The x comes before y. So just like in the alphabet, it goes x then y. Our x comes first. So how would I write my answer?
0, 2.
0, 2. Perfect. So that's my solution. Now, is there a way I could check my work?
Plug in both of the.
Awesome. I could plug in both numbers into the x and to the y in both equations, and it will make sense. So you can always check your work for these types of questions, just like we did in the warm-up. You can take your x, plug it into the x's, take the y's, plug it into the y's. All right, let's look at B. So first thing I want to check for is if I have the same number but opposites with the same variable. Do I have that here?
Yeah.
Which ones? The x's or the y's? So the x's. So which is going to be the variable that I eliminate? The x's, because I have the same number but opposites. So I'm going to eliminate the x's. 3x minus x is just 0. They cancel out. Say bye to the x's. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. What's 2y plus 4y? 6y. And then what's 7 plus 5? 12. So now I have my own little equation here. What is 6y is equal to 12? How could I solve that? Perfect. Since 6 is being multiplied to y, I divide both sides by 6. So what would y equal? 2. So that's one answer. How can I find another answer? How do I find my x?
Plug in 2 into the y.
Perfect. Plug in 2 into the y's. Which equation do you want to plug it into, the first or the second? First. It doesn't matter. You can plug it into either one. But just make sure you're plugging it into the correct variable. So I got to plug it into the y. So I have 3x plus 2 times 2, because I'm plugging in 2 for y, is equal to 7. What do I do next to solve?
Multiply 2 by 2.
Perfect. Multiply 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. So now I have 3x plus 4 is equal to 7. What should I do next to solve? Subtract the 4 on both sides, so it'll cancel out. So I have 3x is equal to 3. Awesome. 7 minus 4 is 3. And then what's the last step? Divide by 3. So what does x equal? 1. So how do I write my final answer?
1, 2.
Perfect. 1, 2. It's always your x, then your y. All right, so let's look at the next page. So a common mistake is that not multiplying every term by the constant. We'll see what that means when we get there. But again, we are solving with elimination. So our goal is to have the same number, but opposites. Meaning one is positive and the other one is negative. That way it'll cancel out. We have the same number, but opposites. We can use elimination. So looking at A, do I have the same number but opposites? No. But I can actually change one of my equations to have the same number but opposites. And I can do that by multiplying everything in one equation by a number. Which variable do you want to cancel out, the x's or the y's?
The y.
Why would you say the y's?
Because one's positive, the other isn't.
Awesome, because we already have a positive and a negative, so that's already step 1. We just now need to make them the same number. How could I change 3 to be 6? What would I need to multiply to 3?
2.
I'm multiplying it by positive 2 because we want to keep it positive, because we need a positive and a negative. So I'm going to multiply the 3 by 2, but if I do it to one term, I have to do it to every term in that equation. So that's where that common mistake that Mr. Yurko put here comes into play. Sometimes people will just multiply one term, but if you do it to one, you have to multiply it to everything in that equation. So just the first equation is getting changed. So everything in my first equation gets multiplied by 2. So what's negative 10x times 2? Negative 20x. What's 3y times 2? 6y. And what is 1 times 2? 2. My second equation is going to stay the same. I'm just going to rewrite it right below to make it a little bit easier for us to work with. Will my y's cancel out now?
Yes.
Yeah, I have the same number but opposites. It's exactly what I wanted. So the y's are going to cancel. So now that we have the same number but opposites, we can go ahead and combine our like terms. What's Negative 20x minus 5x.
Negative 25.
Negative 25x. Perfect. And what is 2 plus 23?
25.
25. What would I need to do next to solve for x?
Divide by negative 25.
Divide by negative 25. So Luna, what does x equal? Just 1? Negative 1. 25 divided by negative 25 is negative 1. So x is equal to negative 1. That's one answer. How do I find what y is equal to?
We plug in the negative 1 in the first equation.
Sure. Am I going to plug it into the x or to the y?
X.
Make sure you plug it into the x. So we're going to plug it into the first equation. It doesn't matter which equation, just make sure you're plugging it into the correct variable. So I have negative 10 times negative 1 plus 3y is equal to 1. What should I do next to solve for y?
Subtract 10 on both sides.
Before I do that,
Oh.
Multiply negative 10 by negative 1.
perfect. Negative 10 times negative 1 would be positive 10. Then what do I do?
Divide both sides. Subtract 10.
Then we subtract 10 on both sides. So I have 3y is equal to, what is 1 minus 10? Negative 9. And then what's the last step?
Divide both sides by 3.
Divide both sides by 3. So y is equal to what?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. And how would I write my answer?
Negative 1, comma, negative 3.
Negative 1 comma negative 3. Remember, it's always x, then your y. So you have to write your answer as a coordinate point, always your x first. With these types of questions, it's super important that you are organized. Make sure your work is neat and organized. If you are sloppy, it's easy to make a mistake. So you want to be super neat and organized and be very careful with the signs. All right, let's look at B. Do I have the same number but opposites? No. How can I make one of my equations have the same number but opposites?
Multiply y in the second equation by
1
by 3.
By 3. I can multiply just the y in the second equation by 3. I have to multiply everything in that equation by 3. So everything in the second equation gets multiplied by 3. So my new second equation is going to be what?
6x.
What's 3 times 3? 9x. What is 3 times y? Plus 3y. And what is 3 times 12? 36. My first equation stays exactly the same. I'm not changing anything there. So I have x minus 3y is equal to 24. Why did you pick the y's to cancel instead of the x's?
Because the x on top of the equation is also positive.
Right, because we already had a positive and a negative for the y's, and our goal is to have the same number but opposites. So we already had opposites, so we just had to make them the same number. Could I have decided to multiply the first equation by negative 3?
Yes.
Yeah, if I wanted to cancel out the x's. So you can pick which variable to cancel. Sometimes one may be easier than the other, but you can choose. You don't always have to do it the same way. All right, what should I do next? So the 3y's eliminate because I have a negative 3y and a positive 3y, so we can get rid of those. What else do I have to do?
Add 1 to 9x.
What's x plus 9x? 10x. And what is 24 plus 36? 60. Now what can I do to solve for x?
Divide both sides by 10.
Perfect. Divide both sides by 10. So what does x equal?
6.
6. Marco, how do I find y?
Well, I swear I've been paying attention.
Awesome. So I have x, so I'm going to take that and plug it into the x in the first equation. It doesn't matter which equation, just make sure you're plugging it into x. So x is what, Marco? What does x equal?
6x?
6. So it's just 6.
Oh, okay.
So 6 minus 3y is equal to 24. All right, Quincy, what should I do next to solve?
Subtract 6 on both sides.
Subtract 6 on both sides. What's 24 minus 6? 18. So negative 3y is equal to 18. Then what do I do next?
Divide by -3.
Divide by negative 3. So what does y equal?
-6.
How do I write my answer? 6 comma negative 6. Perfect. It's always your x and then your y. Let's do D. So D looks a little bit different because we're used to it being in order. What's wrong here?
The X is on the outside.
Right, so we need it to be x and then y, then equals our constant. It has to be in the same order if we're going to do elimination. So how can I move that y to the left side?
Subtract y from both sides.
Awesome, I want to subtract y on both sides. So now my new first equation is 5x minus y is equal to 8. So it has to be in the same order. I'm going to rewrite my second equation below it so we can see our like terms. Do I have the same number but opposites? No. But can I make them have the same number but opposites? Yes. Do we want to pick the x's or the y's? You want to eliminate the y's? Again, it doesn't matter. We can pick. Let's eliminate the y's. We need the same number but opposites. So what am I going to have to multiply? 2 to everything in which equation? 2 to everything in the first equation. So we multiply everything times 2. So my new first equation is 10x, because it's 5x times 2. So 10x minus 2y is equal to 16. My second equation stays the same, but I'm going to rewrite it below so I can see my like terms. Now do I have the same number but opposites? Yes. So which variable am I going to eliminate? The y's. The y's cancel. Negative 2y plus 2y is just 0. They cancel. Get rid of them. What's 10x minus x? 9x. And what is 16 minus 7? 9. Then we divide both sides by 9. What's 9 divided by 9? 1. Perfect. That's one answer. So I found x. Marco, how do I find y?
Plug it in to or you can do either one, right?
You can do either one. So we're going to plug it into one of the originals. Which one do you want to plug it into?
The top one.
Sure, we can plug it into the top one. Just make sure you're plugging it into the x, since it's x is equal to 1. So I have 5 times 1 is equal to y plus 8. So here we are solving for y. What would I need to do next to solve for y? 5 times 1, which is 5. So I have 5 is equal to y plus 8. Awesome. We need to get that y all by itself, so I'm going to move that 8 to the other side. So subtract 8 to both sides. What is 5 minus 8? So negative 3 is equal to y. Now, how do I write my final answer? 1 comma negative 3. It's always your x and then your y. So again, for these questions, it's super, super, super important to be organized. You want to make sure you stay organized and you are careful with the signs.